So in a moment, we're going to write a very simple program, and while we do, we're going to think about what a program actually is at the end of the day. So we've seen so far that we have this language called Python, and we can use Python to write programs. And Python itself has all these tools at our disposal to actually write those programs with. So among them are things like conditionals, variables, loops, and in this case, importantly, functions, where a function is some piece of code that kind of takes an input and produces some output. You could think of it kind of like a verb that you can actually run inside of your own program. So here, I'll go ahead and make a program called hello.py, by typing code hello.py, and I'll hit enter. And I'll get this blank Python file. I know because it ends with .py here. And I want to call or use my very first function. And one function built into Python is called the print function, where the print function takes some text as input and produces as output this text in my terminal down below. So I'll type print here, and I'll follow it with parentheses, just like this, and I'll type hello world, like that. So now I've used or called my very first function, print. And maybe afterwards I'll also type print, maybe this is CS50P, like this. So now I have a very simple program, and I've, in this case, used two functions. Now if you're new, you might be asking, how do I know that these are functions? Well, it just so happens that functions have these identifiers you can use to determine when you're actually looking at a function. Now one of these identifiers are these parentheses here. Notice how I called the name of the function, print, and I followed it with parentheses, open and closed here. So when you use or call functions, you're often going to type the name of the function, followed by parentheses, and then some input. Some functions might not even take any input. You can call them a bit like this, print, open, and close parentheses, and that would mean this function doesn't take any input, or in this case, I haven't given it any input on line 3. But I have, of course, on lines 1 and 2. So to give you an idea of what these functions will do, let me go ahead and run the program. I'll type python hello.py down below to run this program top to bottom. So that is, first we'll see the print function will run on line 1, and then on line 2, the second print function will run. So I'll hit enter here, and I should see, hello world, this is CS50P from top to bottom. So we've used these functions, but as a programmer, you might also want to create your own functions. And in particular, you might want to write programs that are composed of individual functions. Now, to define your own function, that is to tell us what code should run when I call or use the function, you can use the keyword called def, D-E-F, where def stands for define. So make what of function P from top to bottom. So we've used these functions, but as a programmer, you might also want to create your own functions. And in particular, you might want to write programs that are composed of individual functions. Now, to define your own function, that is to tell us what code should run when I call or use the function, you can use the keyword called def, D-E-F, where def stands for define. So maybe, because this is the main function, I'm about to write the main function in my program, I could just call it main, def main, like this. And I want to include an open parentheses and a close parentheses followed by a colon. And that then says, I have a new function that I've defined called main that in this case won't take any particular inputs. But now if I want to tell Python, or my program in particular, what code should be run when I use this function, I need to indent those lines of code and put it inside this definition here. So why don't I take these two prints, and put it inside of my function called main. I'll indent both of them and move this back up to the top. And now I have defined, again, a function called main that doesn't take any particular input, but it does run these two functions. First the print on line 2, and then the print on line 3. So now that you've seen how to define a function, you could think about how or who defined the print function for us. Because right now we're saying print hello world, but what does it mean to print? Like, what goes into printing something to the terminal? Well, it just so happens that the Python developers defined what happens in the print function. So now that you've seen how to define a function, you could think about how or who defined the print function for us? Because right now we're saying print hello world, but what does it mean to print? Like, what goes into printing something to the terminal? Well, it just so happens that the Python developers defined what happens in the print function elsewhere in the Python library, which you'll learn more about as we go through the course. But for now, you can just kind of know that you can use this function, print, but somewhere else, somebody before you has defined it and allowed you to use it in this context, just like I've now defined a function called main here. So let me go and run this program now. I'll say python hello.py, hit enter. I don't see anything, which is maybe surprising if you're new, because here I said I'm going to define a function called main, and within that function I want to do the following. I want to print hello world and then print this is CS50p. But in Python, defining a function is different from running it, or this technical term called calling it. So I've defined my function called main, but I haven't called main. And by convention, I can do that using two new lines underneath my definition here, and then calling main. So I'm going to now run whatever I've defined as part of my main function here. I'll type python hello.py again, hit enter, and now I should see hello world, this is CS50p. Because this program is read top to bottom, it will first define a function called main. It will then say what functions compose that function, which functions should be run when I call this function. And then down below, I finally actually call it on line 6. And so now, in this case, you've seen that my entire program is really kind of a function. As you go off and build new and better programs, you'll see that a lot of what you're doing is just writing things that take inputs and produce outputs, and those things are called functions. Time. Well, hello one and all, and welcome to our short on variables. Now, a common function of computers is telling us what time it is. And here, I have a program called clock.py to do that. Down below in my terminal, I can run python of clock.py and see that it is 7 a.m. in US Eastern Time. But of course, on line 1 here, it seems like no matter what time it is, it will always be 7 a.m. in US Eastern Time. Well, the time, of course, might change. Even if it's 7 a.m. right now, it won't be in 1 minute or 2 minutes from now. So we need a way to keep track of this value, like the time that might change while our program is running. Well, for that case, we can use a variable, where a variable is some name for a value that might change. To create a variable in my program, I can do this. I can first think of what name I want to associate with some value. In this case, I might make a variable called time. So I'll simply type time in my program. I'll then have an equals sign, which stands for assignment. I want to assign some value to this variable. What value do I want to assign? Well, in this case, I'll assign a piece of text 7 a.m. And this is a piece of text because I know I have double quotes here. So whatever's inside is some piece of text. So to read this again, we've created now a variable called time. We're going to assign it, using this equal sign here, or the assignment operator, some piece of text, 7 a.m. Well, the beauty of a variable is that if I give it some name, I can actually print the value inside of it simply by using the name. So here, if I print time, I won't actually see T-I-M-E, literally. I'll see instead the value being stored inside of this variable called time, or the value that it was originally assigned. Here on line 1, I'll run python of clock.py, and I'll see 7 a.m. Well, what other variables could we create? Time zone might be something that could change too. So here on line 2, I'll make a variable called time zone, and I'll assign it the value US Eastern, again, some piece of text. And then here on line 5, I could print time zone as well. Now if I run python of clock.py, I'll see 7 a.m. and US Eastern. So variables are good for associating, in this case, values with names that I can then reuse in my program. But of course, these values might change. And again, the beauty of a variable is we could change the value associated with this name. Let's say later on, I travel across the world and I go to Nepal. Well, over there, it might be 4:45 p.m. instead. And my time zone will have certainly changed. I'll actually be in Kathmandu time. So originally, I had these two values for my variables. But then later on, I changed the value associated with them. Well, now if I print these two variables, let's see what we get. I'll run python of clock.py, and I'll get the latest value that was assigned to them. So in this case, 4:45 p.m., Asia, Kathmandu time. So one way we can use variables is by changing, in this case, the value we assign to them. Another way to use them is to combine them in certain ways. So here, if I wanted to kind of replicate what I had earlier, where I said some time in some time zone, well, I could do that using my variables. Here, in my print statement, I could concatenate the values inside of these variables with other strings or pieces of text. So here, I could say time and try to concatenate a new piece of text, in, and then on top of that, concatenate or append some other piece of text, like that associated with our variable time zone. So what should we see? Well, I should see the value that time is storing, most recently 4:45 p.m., concatenated with space in space, some new piece of text. That concatenated with here, our text associated with time zone, or Asia Kathmandu time. I'll run python of clock.py, and here I'll see those values inside those variables being concatenated together. So here, this works because we're storing what we call strings, or pieces of text inside of these variables. When we have variables that store pieces of text, this plus sign stands for concatenation, or combining our pieces of text together. But of course, our variables might store different kinds of data, not just strings or pieces of text. They could also store numbers. It turns out, in your computer, we often keep track of time as a number, the number of seconds that have passed since January 1st, 1970. So let's take a look at that approach here. Let me delete these variables and go back to having just one called time. Well, time was originally assigned this string, 7 a.m., but it doesn't have to be assigned a string. In fact, I could assign it some number. I could assign it this number here, 174160440. This is the number of seconds that have passed since January 1st, 1970. So now, if I run python of clock.py, I will see that number down in my terminal. And now that I have a number inside of this variable, well, the plus sign means something different. If I were to type time and then try to assign it some new value, well, I could actually take the current value of time and add on some number of seconds. Let's say 1 minute passes, for instance, or 60 seconds. Here, if I run python of clock.py, I'll see 60 seconds have passed since our first running of this program, at least according to us adding in manually here 60 seconds. So we've now seen the different kinds of values variables can store. They can store things like strings or pieces of text, and they can also store numbers. When we store different kinds of values, the kinds of things we can do with those values changes. With strings, we can concatenate them, combine them together. With numbers, we can add or we can subtract. Variables are all important in our program. They help us keep track of things as they change throughout time. This then was our short on variables, and we'll see you next time. By simply using the value. Well, hello one and all, and welcome to our short on return values. So let's say I want to find the area of my apartment. How much square feet is inside of it? Well, I know my apartment is about 50 feet wide and about, let's say, 20 feet long. So to find the area of my apartment, I could multiply these two numbers together to get the total area inside in terms of square feet. So I wrote a program here to do just that. I have a function here called area that takes in two parameters, length and width. What I'll then do is print the result of multiplying length times width, converted of course to a string, and I'll concatenate this result with the other string, square feet. So let's try this out. Here in my main function, I'm calling area with two particular arguments, 50 and 20, and I should get, let's say, about 1,000 square feet. I'll run python of area.py, hit enter, and I will see 1,000 square feet. So area seems to be working just as I want it to. Now, let's imagine I had maybe more space to add to my apartment. Maybe I also have a yard. I want to figure out how much space I have in my yard too. Well, let's visualize that first. Back here, I have my apartment, but let's say I added on some space for a yard. Well, in this case, my yard is 50 feet wide and 50 feet long. So I need to multiply those two values together to find the area of my yard. Well, I'll go back to my program here, and because I have this area function, I could just call it again with different arguments. So down here on line 7, let's say, I'll run area and provide 50 for the length and 50 for the width. And now if I run python of area.py, I'll see the area for my house and the area for my yard. Well, this is all well and good, but what if I wanted to add these two numbers together? Maybe I want to find the total area between my house and my yard. Well, currently, I actually can't do that, and that's because area doesn't have what we would call a return value, at least one that I can use right now in my program. So here, area really only has what we would call a side effect, something that changes as a result of this function running. In this case, we see down below some text being printed to the screen. And that makes sense because on line 2, we call the print function, whose side effect is to print something to my terminal down below. But if I look in this main function here, where I call area both times, I actually can't really do anything with the output. I only see it down in my terminal. So how could I get a value from area that I could reuse in my program? Well, I should create, in this case, a return value. Let me clear my terminal down below, and let me modify area to instead return to me some value. And return in this sense means that area, once it is finished running, will give back to me a value I could use in my program. I could store it in a variable, for instance. Let's type return here. Our keyword indicate we're going to return some value, and let's now type the value we're going to return. In this case, length times width. Now that I've done this, in my main function below, I can actually store this return value from area in its own variable. I could say house is a new variable, which is assigned the return value of area. So we'll read this more so right to left. Area will run. It'll be passed these two arguments, 50 and 20. Area will then run. It'll run 50 times 20 and return to me that value, which I'll then assign to the value of the variable house here. I'll do the same thing down here for yard. Let me go ahead and actually use these values first. Now that I have these in two variables, I could find the total area by simply using the values in these variables. I could say total, a new variable, is assigned the result of house plus yard, or the value in these two variables added together. That is my total area. I'll then down below print something like this. Convert total to a string and concatenate it here. Total square feet. Let me go ahead and run Python of area.py, and now I'll see 3,500 square feet. So this return value here allowed me to take some value from my function area and use it later on in my program. It passed back to me a value that I could then use throughout my main function. Now, a common misconception with these return values. Well, here on line 2, I'm saying return length times width. But you might be inclined to also want to print the current area. Let's say I wanted to do print the value of length times width, just like this. Maybe I could both return some value and print the result. Well, actually, it doesn't quite work like this. When I say return on line 2, this means this is the end of my function. Return indicates not just what value to hand back to whoever called the function, but also when my function should end and stop entirely. So you see down below here, on line 3, this line is actually kind of more faintly written, indicating my program will never get to this line. So if I want to do both this act of printing something out, having this side effect, and returning some value, I'll need to actually move this print statement above my return statement. So here, I'll print length times width. Let's go ahead and concatenate that with our square feet as well. And then, to make things more clear, why don't we say total square feet down in main? And now what I think will happen is this. We'll call area the first time with 50 and 20. We'll print out the area of my house, and then return the value, which we'll store in this variable house. We'll then call area with 50 and 50. Do the same thing now with these two values. We'll add the two results together to get total, and we'll print one final time the total square feet. Let's try this out. I'll run Python of area.py, and I'll see exactly what we wanted to see. This then was our short on return values, and we'll see you next time.